Welcome to the Y Podcast episode 3. I am Hashim and we have Mohammed as usual. In this episode, we will be discussing in and around fatherhood, I guess, our personal experiences with it, what it means, what the benefits are, personal experience, I guess, mainly. So for me, just an introduction, I think it's essential for a child to have two parents, and it doesn't really become clear until I think you're an adult why that is. You can step back and understand kind of the ebb and flow of a masculine and feminine role. Wouldn't you want to give your introduction, I guess?
I largely agree with that. I think as I've gotten older, I think you realize that there's certain gaps, or not necessarily things missing internally, but it's just like information gaps and experience gaps that you end up having because if you don't have, parental figures, that especially a father, to guide you along. And I think that as you lead into adulthood, having your parents as adults being able to give you information about adulthood is really important. And I'm sure a lot of that stuff also manifests, as a child when you're growing up. I think you don't really realize that there's another way of doing things other than what your own experience is.
Yeah. You're not the average example.
Right. So, and I imagine we're going to agree a lot on this one. But yeah, I mean, I also agree wholeheartedly with the idea of the masculine and feminine energies and having the child have access to both so that they can really know how to tap into both sides of who they are, because everybody has, that dichotomy within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you've only known masculine responses, or rather feminine responses to stimuli, I think that is not necessarily very healthy for development.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking today, do you think it's possible that the role of the father can be replaced as we get more non-scarce, I guess you could say?
As if in a post-scarcity society, would you necessarily need that?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think maybe not so much as far as maximizing your ability to acquire resources, but just I think in your wholeness as a person. I think it's really important, just again, in the way that you interact with the world, being able to have those guides. There's some stuff going on outside. Actually, that was, I think, an accident as I was coming up. There was a lot of fire trucks. But so to be able to have, I don't know, now that I'm saying it, maybe it's important to have, when they say it takes a village to raise a child, it's just important to have adult influences in your life. And, having a parents is the bare minimum of that. But maybe it's, I don't know, the most successful people that I know have really good support systems around them that's even bigger than their immediate parents, but just the people around them invest in them to be as best as, whatever they are, to excel. And then, they interact with the world well. They have a certain amount of self-confidence or self-assuredness in the way that they approach things. I think because it's beneficial to know that people have your back, and that, in the most trusting, I think most trust that you can have in somebody, assuming that there's been no major violations or breaches in trust, is in your parents, because they've essentially been with you since the beginning. And so if that breach isn't broken, then I think you have an ability to extend trust and extend, positive expectations on the world, more so than if, your initial relationship failed. That's kind of a poor start.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. But I've been wondering, what kind of my life experiment has been coming back from that, and how can I fill your opinion seems to be that you just have gaps sometimes.
Yeah, I think everybody has like little gaps in there, whether they're as small as, I don't know, just not being good at something you wanted to be good at, or as big as like not having parents, or your parents did something very wrong to you, or, that violated your trust. It's just, I think there ends up just being gaps that adults have. And I think it's really hard, if not impossible, to fill those gaps. So maybe that is a disagreement area.
Yeah, well, I feel a little, I don't know, I agree to an extent, because kind of my, I guess, past 4 years or so has been kind of trying to recapture what manhood is, and kind of pulling on the men that I encounter, and kind of just been really imploring them to kind of teach me how to live, be it my coworkers or my coaches, or, things like that.
Yeah.
But I can see why you say there's gaps, because those people just act that way. There's not that second to think about it and be like, oh, this is how I should be acting.
Yeah.
You have that built-in. I mean, you grow up for 18 or so years a certain way, and it's hard to change kind of your initial thoughts, or your initial importances in how you act. And it's hard to see, because growing up for me, I would always kind of brush off manhood as just being kind of outdated and brutish, kind of as a way to dismiss it in my head, and normalize my life,
Yeah.
But
Well, and that's what you see, right? If you don't have, like I said, there's also the argument, and this is not where I was going to go initially, but there's also maybe we're glorifying an experience that we didn't have.
Yeah.
And so you're making it so, if it wasn't this way, then I don't think so, but that's a comment, a thought in my head that's like, hey, you know what? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe there is no gaps. It's just my constitution isn't built for certain things, or I am making excuses for not being better, or working to improve what I am. But I don't think so. I think when you have a father in the house, I think the big benefit is not necessarily in the, yesterday I was talking about like the knowledge. It's not, I don't think it's necessarily in the, like, come here, son, let me show you how to shave. It's probably more so in just the day-to-day, how to be a respectable man, how to be a respectable person, how this person treats, how you treat a wife, how you treat how you treat somebody, a peer, things like that. And it's just, okay, this is how I want to present myself to the world, rather than, I think when you're left largely unattended, or, and that stuff just isn't there, then those things don't even really register for you.
Yeah, that's hard to. And even, with my experience being, I had a stepfather for pretty much my whole childhood.
Yeah.
But kind of like what you just said, he did show me how to do things, but there's always this distance of distrust and kind of, I don't know, as a kid, it's not even really a feeling you can put your finger on, but you don't accept it, or I don't know. There's always a vetting process you go
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
The emo-
I think that's still, no matter what, and God bless stepfathers, because I think that's a ridiculous job. But
yeah, it's really
just
hard.
because, I mean, how can you? I mean, maybe when they're really, really young, if they don't know anything different, but you're coming in as an outsider and then trying to fulfill a role that is just, I don't know, it's such an important, big role, and so much of what a child is at that point doesn't have anything to do with you. So it's changing characters mid cat, changing the cast mid
Yeah,
season in a kid's life, and it's like, why would that kid just accept what you are and that your role makes sense? Like, why would that role make sense to a child?
yeah. I didn't vote for you.
Right, right, exactly. I had nothing to do with this. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, you're all of a sudden you're here and you're walking around and you're, asserting some authority, and so how can that make sense
Mhm.
responsibly? I don't know. And they said maybe that's just an experience thing because it didn't really make sense
Yeah.
for me.
No, I mean it didn't make sense for me either. He would um he would try to teach us to go shooting or work out and stuff, but there was always a resistance to there was always an attitude I put on. There wasn't that open acceptance of, oh, this is what we're doing today.
Mhm.
Oh, we're doing this with, then I could be playing the ZFL or something. You know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that,
It becomes an intrusion, right?
uh,
Rather than what it should. I don't know that it's necessarily different. That's necessarily different, or it's extremely different with real father. That's probably not the right word. A
uh,
real father and a stepfather, but I think there's another level to it when it's a step, when it's somebody stepping into that role, and it's like you like your role. As I said, the role isn't very well defined, right? And so it's like having a job with the job description doesn't tell you what authorities you do or don't have. At least they're not clear, and so there's always, and certainly the kid's not getting maybe they are. The kid's not getting is not privy to that contract negotiation.
uh,
Whereas a real father or biological father in the home since day one is gonna, it's kind of the accepted thing as you grow up, and so you're already programmed for that authority structure.
yeah,
And so if you're gonna go out and do something, it's like maybe you do want to play stupid little football league, but it's like, hey, this is what I'm doing. He's the boss, so
mm-hmm.
where that ability to fall back and say, hey, this guy's the boss. He knows what's going on. He leads. He leads the household, and that's all I know.
Yeah.
It's just not something that a stepfather has the benefit of.
So, do you think the the what is it, instincts to be a father are still latent within you if you ever had children, or do you think there's still a damage there?
I think there's damage there. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I think that, but I think, and it impacts different people in different ways. But I think, are you asking for me personally or for like in
Um,
general?
yeah, general, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's probably the same answer anyway. But yeah, I think there's a certain amount of damage there. I think people just, and it's kind of what life is you take your lumps and I think you take your gaps, and as far as offspring is concerned, you either end up projecting those and injecting those rather into the offspring, or you fight like hell to not.
Uh-huh.
And if you're not fighting really, really hard to not be whatever it is, whatever that gap is, then you are going to default into what you are and who you are. I don't think, I mean, all the, most of the programming of who you are happens, so much of it happens when you're growing up, that by the time you're an adult, if you don't consciously know, especially by the time you're having kids, assuming you're having kids at a fairly responsible age, you are already what you are, and it's going to be hard to change course in what your programming is. And so that's why you see, I think that's why you see so much, repetition of behavior. As far as, if somebody comes from an abusive home, they have a tendency to think that that's okay, or, or to live, even if they don't like cognitively think it's okay, they're still more likely to be in an abusive relationship. And, it's like your ability to interact with the world and what you know about interacting with the world ends up being colored so much by your upbringing that if you are missing this key piece, you end up having to kind of make it up on your own, right? So if you've never, what I really think about, I don't even know what your question was anymore, but what I really think the big impact becomes is on your relationships with people, especially like your relationships when it comes to being a husband, a partner, a romantic partner. Look, if you've literally never really seen somebody interact in a responsible relationship which is what a household is supposed to be, man, how are you going to figure that out? That's not something that you're just going to naturally be good at by, just living and, trying to merge your programming with somebody else so that it's a compatible situation. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a crazy concept, and people make it a lot easier than it is. Make it look a lot easier than it is.
Yeah. But again, they think, or there's a lot of assumptions that go on that you're like, well, yeah, I enjoy this person's company or whatever for now, so of course, like, why wouldn't we be compatible? There's so much to being compatible with somebody. There's so much purposefulness that comes with being able to connect with somebody consistently. That like nothing, you're not just going to drift into that. Maybe you are, but it's more highly unlikely.
Yeah, really. I was just telling, so I went to the philosophy group yesterday, and they were kind of we were talking about empathy, and I don't know, somebody made a comment like, in relationships, you kind of assume you're supposed to be caring, or you assume you're supposed to do things for people to show you're doing something, but it doesn't always read the same way, because for them, they're coming from a completely different reference point. So it's just crazy to think about, because you're not, even if you're like 70 years old, there was like a 50-year-old Australian lady there, and she was, she's still searching for everything. So even if you're, no matter how old you are, you're an incomplete, unfigured out person trying to mesh with another incomplete, unfigured out person, and it's so easy to default to thinking the other person's kind of, figured out, they're put together, and I'm just gonna fit my teeth into their teeth like a zipper.
Right.
When it's all just kind of melting. But I don't know if that's fatherhood,
but it does, in that all life, not all life, but so much of life is your interactions with the rest of your species. And fatherhood, I think, or the lack thereof, I think that just has a huge impact on how you can possibly relate to each other. As a man, it affects, I think, daughters more so, probably. It's a kind of cliche, but like if a father's not there, how is a daughter supposed to know? Heterosexual. I don't want to be cis normative, hetero, all that. Let me pre-label everything, but how is a daughter gonna know what somebody who really cares about you, somebody who genuinely cares about you, how that looks? Because because especially in a world where people as a girl are gonna actively want something from you in so many of their interactions with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no building that sense of how to read a guy, how to read a man, So you pretty much fall for anything.
Yeah, sure. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, they give you the initial attention. That's the first thing you want, and that's all you really know you want because you've never gotten further.
Yeah. Especially if you've never really gotten that in the home.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have kids.
Yeah, we should have brought a guest.
Huh?
We should have brought a guest with kids.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. That's an important role. It's
huge.
It would just be sad to me. Maybe it is just sad. Maybe I just accept it sad. But it would just seem sad to me that you just have gaps.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't you be able to just get based and understand?
Yeah, I guess, but you're still going to be your own, version of your broken self.
Why is it got to be broken?
Well, everybody, it's not broken. Maybe broken's too harsh of a term, but you're whatever you patch together. When the body heals, I think it goes for. I mean, physically, I'm talking about. The body heals, and you pull a muscle, it heals. It's not the tissue's not that great. It works as a patch, but it's not the original item. And I think that's just how it is in general. I think that's probably serves as a guide for how everything is. So if you are missing a certain emotional component, then you can fill it up. You can work on it, but I think the important point, like you were saying, I didn't mean to point at the thing like that. But the important point, like you were saying, is you have to force yourself out. You have to force outside of yourself to act in a way that you think is more responsible. And so that exertion in and of itself is like another activity, and so it makes it that much harder to just default. You don't default to that.
Yeah.
And so anytime you're not fully aware of yourself, you're at risk of not being as good as you can be, and so you're just operating within that gap, with those gaps.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, because as it relates to understanding just kind of living the way you're supposed to live naturally, that raises a question about what exactly self-improvement is.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. I never really thought about that.
Yeah, well, it goes a little bit against the idea of being based, because how is that even based to be operating outside of your natural or default programming, right?
Mm-hmm. That's crazy, man. I didn't think this thought was gonna happen. I'm not ready for this.
Yeah, it's kind of paradoxical. Is we talk so much, at least, about like, yeah, you want to it's not necessarily we talk about being comfortable, but like being who you are unapologetically is really important.
Mm-hmm.
But if who you are is, you know, broken,
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
fix that. You got to try and fix that, or at
Yeah.
least patch it over. Have a, have a workaround for those things.
Yeah. It's important because there are, well, I think the issue is when it comes to roles you have to take, you know, like being a father and knowing that your true self isn't going to perform as much as you know it could.
Mhm.
You kind of have to take a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
That's just sad, man. Because there's people that don't have to take the sacrifice.
Right.
They can just be, and they're just in their bliss.
Yeah. Well.
Well, I mean, not there's no bliss, but I'm saying it's you just live, and it's just natural. And it's just like,
Yeah. Yeah. And when you have kids, that kind of stuff, some of that goes out of the window. Your ability to be based. You can't be based with kids.
yeah, we talked about that with Kamal in the hangout before a little bit, because I think we were talking about well, because being based is a very selfish endeavor.
Yeah. Right. I mean, our dad is probably pretty based.
I'm gonna punch you.
But you don't think about it. I wasn't even making a joke.
He probably is.
Like he's in what he's doing, and it's like,
And he's always been that way.
man.
Just super.
But he had a bunch of kids.
Oh no, Muhammad! I can't equate being based with that. I wasn't ready for this. Oh God, man, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, life's hard, man.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's just a lot of things happening, and about 90% of them you can't even see until it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you become an adult, and you've got all this pre-programming, and you're like, well, now what?
Uh-huh.
So there you go. I don't know what you do with that information. So all this like thought and energy into like being based and how that's important. And it's like, well, my dad's great.
No.
He didn't stick around, and he was not a model father by any measure. So maybe he's got it all right.
He hasn't figured out. Oh my God. No, that's a surprise conclusion.
Yeah, I think that's really where we get with that.
Oh man.
Living without compromise.
But that's not fair, Muhammad.
To who?
That's not fair. I have to start my life behind.
Mm-hmm.
That's really sad.
Yeah. Well, I think the positive to it is the way happiness works with people. And so even no matter where you start, your ability to improve or your ability to accomplish still, I think, brings you a similar amount of happiness as somebody who started ahead of you in their incremental progress. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's because at the end of the day, it's all kind of a relative
Right.
thing, your emotions.
Right. So it's not fair, but your ability to the amount of joy and positive that you can extract from this life is probably still about the same, if not more, because you can go even higher. If you start behind and you get to the same place as somebody who started ahead of you, you probably enjoy that a lot more.
That's true. Well, you made me feel a lot better. Man, this is... Maybe that's why there's 32 levels of based.
Maybe. Is there 32 levels?
I'm only on level 9. I decided I leveled up on Saturday.
Oh, yeah? I don't know. Are these codified somewhere?
No, you just have to feel it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, all right. You have anything more you want to add on this topic?
No, I don't think so. This was interesting.
Yeah, had a surprise conclusion.
We'll try and keep you from, jumping off the roof of your house.
Yeah. It's okay. As long as I got my shoes.
I hear you. That's all there is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what your dad said.
No! No! That's not okay.
Well, at least you don't have kids.
Whatever, man. This has been the WOD Podcast, and we'll see you later.